Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me? Maybe. How about now? There we go. Shut up, Mike. Nobody likes you. Neither is Mike. Have you met Mike? All right. So I'm going to be talking a bit today about, I'm going to try to get this higher because I feel like I'm ducking. It doesn't really go higher. Okay. I'm going to be talking about managing large assessments. So I'm a senior pen tester with AppSec Consulting. For some odd reason, the last year or two, I've been doing very large assessments. Like lowest is 800, top is like 27,000 hosts on an assessment. So kind of leads to some issues. So why am I talking about it? Most people learn hacking on very small networks of like 1 to 20 hosts. They don't realize that there's a difference in attack methodology until they're into it and they've lost too much time and they lose that engagement. And that's a bad thing in the consulting world. You don't want that. And really little discussion is done about pen test methodology. And if there's any pen testers here that say I'm an idiot, totally talk to me because I love changing my methodology because I feel like nobody talks about it unless you're at lunch with Mike. That's Mike. All right, so scanning, the thing that annoys me the most. Scanning is not Netflix time. So if you're on a large engagement and you're waiting and doing nothing while your scanning is happening, you've just lost your engagement. So a big blurb of text. Scanning tips. Scoping. If you're scoped to 500 to 1,000 IPs, you're not going to be given 500 to 1,000 IPs. You're going to be given a bunch of /16s, right? And you've got to scan through that to find your hosts. So doing large engagements, you've got a couple options, and the thing that somebody's going to yell at me for is say use mass scan, which I absolutely will not use because I have crashed a client's router before. I filled up the table and blew their network up. Not going to do it again. They told me to because I said no, and they told me to, and they were wrong. But moral of that story. So when you're doing a large scan, do a ping-only scan, find all your hosts that are pingable out there, right? Throw those into Nessus. And one other comment, because I was talking to another pen test earlier today, in pen testing, we always do Nessus scans as part of our vulnerability assessment as well as the pen test. So you'll see with here, I'm always doing a Nessus scan on everything. So I'm doing a ping scan, throwing that into Nessus for what hosts are found. I'm doing an Nmap scan for just certain ports, like 22, 23, 80, 80, or 88, 443, so on and so forth, just a couple ports, doing a scan to find more hosts, but I'm excluding those hosts that were pingable because I'm looking for hosts that are not pingable that have services up, right? So I take those and I throw those in Nessus. That's where I'm finding my targets. And I'm trying to do that as fast as I can because the faster you find things, the faster you can actually have fun, right? I hate waiting for scans to stop. So additional scanning can be done using a script. So I have a script that when it detects that I'm on the box actually doing something, it backgrounds all of my scans. So it's just like hitting Control-Z in Linux, and it backgrounds all the scans. When it detects that I'm gone, it foregrounds the scans and restarts them. Because when I'm running Nessus scans or Nmap scans or anything else while I'm on the box, if I'm running something like dsniff, I'm going to be capturing the credentials Nmap is sending across. It's not going to be capturing the credentials the client is sending to me by accident, right, through multicast. So when your scans are running, you don't really want to be doing too much pen testing because they conflict a lot. So I push that off to when I'm sleeping. And I try to sleep a lot so that happens, right? So don't do full port scans with Nmap because Nessus, if you're using Nessus with it, you don't want to duplicate that effort, right? Nmap scan plus a Nessus scan, if they're both doing a port scan, why do it? And you might say, why aren't you using the great Nessus functionality where you can import a port scan? And that's because it hasn't been working about since March. So it just does a full scan again anyway and wastes all that time. And a large assessment, again, you just lost your assessment. So scanning tips continued. Break your segments into logical groups, generally /24s, and do both your Nmap scanning and your Nessus scanning on those segments. Doing a /8, you can actually run your entire engagement waiting for your /8 scan to complete. And you've never gotten anything back, so you're just sitting there. Also, if you're, and I actually just noticed I made a mistake. So Nessus PDF reports are often too large to open if more than 700 hosts are in there. And a lot of customers want their PDF reports for various things, PCI or just a review or whatever. So if you're going to be handing those out, make sure to do your /24 scans or smaller, so that they can actually open their reports, because otherwise they get mad. And there's no real good way to break those up after the scan's been done. And actually, Nessus itself will crash, I think, if you have more than, I don't know if you know this, like 3,000 or so hosts on a scan that show up. It likes to toast itself. So, all right. Things to do while the scans are running. If you're externally doing a test, importing Shodan results into Metasploit is great. Really fast, convenient, and you can get pen testing immediately. If you're internal, run a responder, which I know there was pretty much a whole talk on responder yesterday, so I won't go into too much of that, but it's a great tool. I've had 2 customers in the last 2 years that have not been vulnerable to it. So it's just the easiest win on the planet. Capture cred, domain admin, you take over the network and you're done. Then you have more fun, but still. So check public password breaches for possible password cred reuse. This is depressingly common. And OS int hacking, like Google hacking and all that kind of stuff, right? Normal pen testing. So vulnerability reuse is most of what I'm going to be talking about today. So when you find something on a network, it's probably going to show up multiple times on the network. If you're doing 50 hosts, you can probably do this manually and see, hey, this host looks similar, and I can find it again and check that vulnerability. When you're on a larger network, that doesn't really work. So if you find the vulnerability once, you basically want to script it so that you find it again repeatedly. And kind of how to do that scripting, and here's a short backstory. So I was going to start writing Metasploit auxiliary modules, which I'm still working on some, but I found out that's a real time sink. So I started prototyping and doing some other types of writing for vulnerability checks and trying to figure out how to do this with large number of hosts. And the great thing that I've discovered, and I thought everybody knew this and that I was late to the game, and I'm finding out a lot of people in the pen testing world don't use it, is the Metasploit host tracking database. They use it, but they don't use it to its full extent. So we're going to talk about it a bit today. And if you've never seen it before, so you can import data in, and you just type services-u, and it pulls up every host and port that your scans have found. And then you can easily sort through that and say, I just want port 80, and it'll pull up all port 80s. Or if I want anything that has like a www, so it's running HTTP, you can throw in a service scan for www, and it pulls up everything that is running a www port. So it's really kind of nice. I'm getting pictures taken. All right. So importing scan data into Metasploit, if you've never used this before, which I hope you have. I hope I'm boring you right now. So you can directly import Nmap XML files and Nessus.Nessus files that you export out of Nessus, which again, that's your scan data that you're going to be using, right? And you can also, as I said before, use Shodan to directly pull data out and start hacking right away. So how to write these scripts that kind of wire outside of the box. So, and again, this is because Metasploit Aux modules take way too much time to write. So I wrote a LDAP check script, and it took me 15 minutes. I've been trying to get the thing written in an Aux module that they would actually accept into Metasploit, and it's taken me too many hours that I want to admit. It's just not cool. So if you're on an engagement, you don't want to be burning time writing scripts. You want to write the script, get it out there, and start checking your stuff, right? So speed is the key. So using the Metasploit database outside of Metasploit, the lazy way, because there is a harder way where you hook into the actual Postgres database. I'm not getting into that. That takes way too much effort. So you create a Metasploit RC file, which is just a .rc file. And when you execute it with Metasploit, it runs any commands in there as if you had just logged into Metasploit and typed in some commands. So what we can do here is, so here's my, my LDAP audit one, and it's just looking up services that are port 389 and outputting a file of every 389 host on there. And then we're going to be using that data. And here's my gratuitous script viewing slide. Let's see how that actually works. So when you try to pull this into a bash script, or you can use Python or whatever you want, but basically it's just dumped out a flat file with a bunch of info in it. So all that I'm doing is I parse that data out, so I just want my host and port data, and I'm going to put it into variables. And also, since I'm working with LDAP, and this is the reason that it's costing so much time with Metasploit, is they don't like you adding protocols. Although they do, but they don't. So it gets a little difficult to add a new protocol into Metasploit to work with it. So all that I have to do here is throw in a check to allow LDAP S. But as you go through your script, all you're doing is you're pulling out that host data and using, just like you would on a command line, right? So I'm using LDAP search. It's pretty easy and straightforward. If anybody wants to look at it, I'm going to have all this on my GitHub later. But so you have a nice little script. It does its thing, but it's pulling that data out of the Metasploit database. So when you've got 27,000 hosts sitting in your database, you can pull up every LDAP port, do the scan on it really quick, and it's super simple. So seeing in action, because nobody likes to see code on a screen. So I execute my script. It checks to make sure my machine is configured, starts the framework, and I'm scanning every LDAP host on the internet automatically. So it's just going down and trying to see what data is there. Which I'm going to skip onto that because we are short on time today. So next, and the only reason that a lot of people fight me on doing this method, because I'm wiring outside the box again, is multithreading, which if you're a Bash developer, you can multithread. So RC file for NICTO, my NICTO audit script. So you're pulling 80, 443, 80, 80, and 8443, right? Pretty easy RC file for Metasploit. And then to add threading into a Bash script is very simple. So you just set up a max procs there. So I want 4 processes to run. And then when you're actually inside, I guess this is probably easier. So you can just count your PID and see how many children PID are running on it. And when you execute your subscripts in here, you just throw an ampersand at the end, and they become a sub-process of that process. And so once you get 4 threads going, your master PID is saying, oh, there's 4. And as you keep running, when it goes down to 3, it'll start the next one, and you've got multi-threading, right? So pretty easy. So long story short on this, you do a bunch of scanning, you find a vulnerability, you write your Bash script, right? You throw your Bash script into a folder, and you can run it singly, but once you've done a couple of engagements, you can combine all this. So you put all of your Metasploit RC files into one. You make a master shell script that executes all of your other shell scripts. And you set up your threading so that your master shell script starts, say, 5 checks. And then inside of your scripts, you have all those threaded, so they're doing 3 to 5 sub-processes at a time. And at this point, you've built your own vulnerability scanner. So you just execute that master shell script once your data is in Metasploit, and it starts running through all of your checks that you've done. Because Nessus catches some stuff, but hopefully you're finding other things as a pen tester that it's not, because that's the point, right? So this is building a vulnerability scanner outside of your vulnerability scanner to automate all of that, so you can do more manual stuff to find more things to throw in. So I've got about 180, give or take, of these files right now. So I've quite a ways on my way to finding and building my own vulnerability scanner, but it makes it nice, quick, and easy. So that's pretty much it. It was a very quick talk, and again, I thought it was very basic. I'm apologizing if you're bored, but a lot of people were asking me how I do this, so I wrote it up. But contact info, if you ever want to get a hold of me, I've got email, eapolsniper@gmail.com. Twitter is eapolsniper. GitHub is eapolsniper. You're kind of finding a pattern here. Huh? Oh, sorry. Maybe. There we go. I work in IT. Yeah. Q&A?
Yeah. How are you handling a large number of web services with see what the web services are? You can look at Nmap scripts to see the titles. You can use HTTP screenshot and try to cluster them. How do you manage those?
So HTTP screenshot is my #1 go-to, and I love dumping them all into a directory and then going through. I actually have some scripts that do identification now on the HTTP screenshots and throw things into boring, less boring, and I've never seen before. So it does all that nice sorting, and that really wasn't that hard. So it just does some basic checking. I can actually put all that up online, I'm sure, too. Give me a few days and I can throw that up on my GitHub. But yeah, it does some nice identification then. So you're not dealing with a bunch of 404 pages or something like that. Or just, if they have 1,000 of the exact same web page they don't care about, it's really easy to say, okay, look at the image and look, is this similar to all the others? And a lot of times I'm really lazy, so I do it based on size. So I get right down to the byte size and see what it looks like and throw away a bunch of stuff, which is not the best way to do it, but I've got other ways, but they take a lot more programming to pull the image data or the text data out of an image. And usually I don't spend that much time on it, but sometimes I have, because I've got a couple that I did because it was way too much effort otherwise. So any other questions? Sure.
In order to decide how many you want to run and make it so that your master script can wait with doing nothing while it waits for one to exit. But you probably run across that already.
I've worked with it a little bit, and I've got to say I'm old enough that I've been doing Bash long enough that I found out about those way later than my current process. This one is really, really easy to build in. And it's been very effective for me. So I know that there's better out there. I just have never done it because when I tried, I got weird errors sometimes, and I just skipped over it because this is like the world's laziest. So I've basically got my template that I build into, and it just works. So yeah, pretty much. Any other questions, comments? Anybody think I'm an idiot? I'm totally up for those. So anything? Sure.
What about the ping scanner in Nessus? What about using that to detect for this and then having Nessus scan those?
I have had very little luck with that. Have you? Does it actually work?
Lately, I haven't been.
So I had actually used a different method at one point where you could actually import your Nmap XML files in. And so you added a plugin to do that. And that was working great. And that's basically what I was using. And I've tried doing the ping method, and it just hasn't worked for me. And I'm probably doing it way wrong. So send me instructions. I'd love it. But yeah, I used to do the import of the XML, and that worked great up until, again, like February or March. And now I imported it, sees all the hosts, so it pulls that in, but then it starts a full port scan on all of them again, which completely takes out the point of importing it, right? So it used to take the hosts and the ports and then do its checks on those, just those. And now it sees the host and it pulls those in and starts the full scan again. But depending on how your scan was set up, it could pull in a bunch of data that you don't want. So I just do it manually and then bring that in, and it seems to work just fine. So any other questions, comments? Anybody want to ask a pen test or something? I don't have too much time left, but that's a good question. So the question was, why do I live in Fargo? I'm sure you get this up here in Winnipeg a lot as well. And the answer is, hell no. The answer is, I work for a San Jose, California company, and they pay me what is probably peanuts to a San Jose company, and what is probably within the top 2% of Fargo. It's a really good mix. I've actually thought about moving it further into the middle of nowhere, where a house costs like 40 grand, because then I can just buy one every couple of months, right? I can just burn my house down and get a new one. So, anything else? Otherwise, I'm done. Oh, sorry.
What is the quickest way to tell people that are not in our field that they're vulnerable to the vulnerability there? Quick way to demonstrate.
The quickest way is doing a quick demo, and again, I'm going to go back to Responder on that. So running Responder and watching the password hashes fly by in gold really works well. If you just say that's bad and they see bad fly repeatedly across the screen, they are not going to be happy campers. The other thing that I used to do, which is totally like not okay in a way. But so you show somebody that you got a Metasploit shell on their laptop, right, at a corporation. They're like, oh, that's not so bad. And then you say, does your daughter ever use your laptop at home? And it's like, well, yeah. It's like, I'm watching her on your webcam. Like, this is possible. This is doable. And the second that it's like, oh, they can watch me at home, immediately they're jumping on it and going, we need to fix this now, because now it affects me. It doesn't affect the company. And if you can do that, it works perfectly. So, yeah. Is responder cheating? Me and my coworker got in a very large argument on this. Yes. And the same question comes with ARP spoofing. And with ARP spoofing, I would say it is actually not as feasible as it used to be, especially on an assessment, mainly because denial of service testing is usually out of scope and you have a chance of taking down the network. That's bad. Responder does not take down the network, and it sends you creds right away. And if I'm an attacker, the first thing I'm going to do is want domain admin, and the fastest way to get domain admin is responder. So it's the first thing I'm going to use. And if the black hat is going to use it, I want to be using it, right? And what black hat wouldn't take something that hands you the creds, can forward the creds on, and automatically use them, and usually get domain admin literally within 5 minutes or less of being on a network. So long story short, no, I don't find it cheating. I find it hilarious and fun, but not cheating. So I also am one of the pen testers that don't stop. So if I get domain admin, I don't stop, and I keep hearing that these people exist out there somewhere. If your pen tester does that, like, bring them out back and shoot them. So if I haven't gotten, like, responder, I might get domain admin within 5 minutes. I'm going to pull out. I'm going to try my next method, my next method, my next method. If I don't have 3 to 5 ways of getting into your network and getting domain admin, when I've been doing it for 2 weeks or more, I'm really feeling bad. Like, you need 3 to 5 methods. Yes? Responder actually only has about 4 things that you care about. Number 1 is you want to enable SMB signing. That defends you against SMB relay attacks a lot, and especially I am blanking on it. There's a tool inside a responder that basically relays creds automatically to a box, and it just waits for an admin, and then it once you get admin, it's done, and you've logged into the box, you get a shell, you can dump creds, and it's over, right? So that's one, and then you want to turn off a couple different protocols. Most of them can be done GPO. There is one that you have to actually write a script, because it's pulling out of the registry. You have to pull a GUID for each interface, and then you need to basically set a flag on that GUID. So you've got to write a script that pulls that GUID and then sets the flag after that GUID. But it's really not that hard. And again, I've got a script that does that too. I can push out to GitHub as well. But yeah, it's only a few things. The problem is they keep rolling it back. So I keep having customers that we find it, they fix it, we do remediation testing, it's fixed. We come back the next year, they're vulnerable again to like half of it, because for some reason they either rolled it back, or that script that I talked about, they don't push it to the new boxes. They only pushed it once, and now you've got other new hosts up there that are vulnerable again. So they get pwned again, and they get annoyed because they got pwned again, and now we're remediation testing, and they're going to screw it up all over again. So long story short, you need to make it that it keeps running and keeps fixing. Exactly. All right, and we are out. So if you have any other questions, I'll be in the back.